17-year-old opened fire 2 different times just minutes apart, shooting 8 people, killing 2 of them and sending 6 others to the hospital. We do have this video here that I do want to pop up on your screen. This is body camera video showing the arrest of that suspect, again 17 years old. You can see police, guns drawn, take down that 17-year-old and take him into custody. Now, we do know that the 6 other people shot are listed in, quote, stable condition. However, that is a very vague term, so there is still a lot left to figure out. It is also not clear if the suspect knew the victims or if he was just firing into that large crowd. But you can see on these cameras from afar that people were running for their lives, and several of them are in costume because this was a Halloween gathering. Now, I do want to send it over to our Fox 35 Orlando team, as they do have live team coverage out there at the scene.
Starts now with breaking news.
We're following a mass shooting in downtown Orlando this morning. 2 people killed, at least 6 others suffering gunshot wounds, and a 17-year-old boy is now in custody. We've just got some new video into the newsroom showing some of the chaos in downtown Orlando, and it appears that we are circling there who we believe to be the suspect in this case. We were told that the suspect was wearing a yellow shirt when he shot into a crowd as people were celebrating Halloween last night.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground right now! Get on the ground! Get on the ground right now!
All right, so there is a close-up view now of the suspect being taken into custody. Body camera video showing that no officers fired any shots. They were able to get to him right away because there were so many officers in downtown last night because of Halloween. Again, a 17-year-old boy is in custody. We do know that he does have a prior record. He was arrested last year for grand theft. He is a juvenile, so we don't have a lot of other information. But, of course, all of that information continues to come into the newsroom this morning. Thanks for being here. It's now 9 o'clock. I'm Amy Kaufeld.
And I'm Danielle Knox.
And I'm Deborah Cho. Of course, we have been following this story since 4 o'clock this morning, really all morning long. Right now, we want to get out to Fox 35 anchor Ryan Elijah, who is actually live at the scene for us this morning. Hey, Ryan.
Good morning, Deborah. Obviously a busy scene down here. There's a lot of media down here. Still a lot of investigation going down. Wall Street Plaza is over my left shoulder, so a lot of this that took place is kind of in that direction. I was just here a week ago. If you were downtown, you know there are huge crowds on weekend nights. Last night they estimate the 50 to 100,000 people, many people in costume. We want to show you some of the images as well that we have seen throughout this. Of course, 2 years ago there was another shooting that happened. It was in the Wall Street area, and they've changed a lot of changes. 6 security checkpoints they set up then as well. In May of 23, there were downtown bars that they had to abide by different rules. They've worked 2 years to try to cut down on this, but obviously last night, even with 100 police officers, it made a quicker arrest, but it did not prevent the attack, and so we will continue to follow that this morning. Right now, we want to get to Marley. She's been down here all morning long to see the latest on We Know. And Marley, that is the one thing we noticed right away, is that there was a very quick arrest in this shooting, unlike 2 years ago.
Ryan, good morning. I'm just down the street from you on the corner of Washington and Orange. And like you mentioned, this was a very quick arrest. And in that video, you'll be seeing how quickly they really take him down. This corner is where the second shooting happened. So Central was where the first shots were fired. And then over here on Washington was where the second shots were fired, and then where he was taken down by police. Look at this video. There's a blur on your screen. Right by that blur, you can see the suspect shoot into the crowd and see the people run away. Then look at this video when the suspect shoots into the crowd a second time. You can see the 2 police trucks lined up. The suspect is in a yellow shirt and runs in the bottom right corner. You can see it circled on your screen, police taking him down. And lastly, I want to show you this video of thousands of people running for their lives. It's estimated between 50,000 to 100,000 people were down here to celebrate Halloween. Here's what some witnesses had to say.
Okay, we were in a club and we heard gunshots. Bop, 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 bop.
It's scary. We're trying to leave now. Like, we don't want to be down here no more. We're not coming outside no more.
Certain clubs were kicking people out. Certain clubs were locking everyone in.
You know, it's definitely been a very terrifying and traumatic day for a lot of people. When I first got here around 2:30, 3 o'clock this morning, there were still people walking around looking for their cars, all dressed in their Halloween costumes, trying to figure out a way to get home because this street here for about 6 blocks was blocked off from police, and then a few streets over. So there's a large radius that people couldn't actually access. I saw lots of people on the sidewalks crying, trying to call their friends, can you please come pick me up? Today, this morning, now that the light is up and the street are back to normal, it's kind of business as usual. However, there are businesses that are cleaning up. You can see right over there, they're mopping all of that water out. Typically, bars clean up that same night. Obviously, they couldn't do that. Over here in the corner bar, you guys can see through the window how much trash is in there. Several bars, I've looked through their windows, and there's tons of shoes, hair ties, all sorts of things. And I think that really paints the picture of everybody dropped their drinks. They took their shoes off, their heels off, and started running. Now, as far as that suspect, the 17-year-old, police told us that he wasn't here in downtown for long. And like Amy had mentioned earlier, we do know that he was arrested back in 2023 for grand theft. So we're being told that that's going to be taken into consideration when deciding whether or not he should be charged as an adult or as a minor. But Ryan, we'll send things back to you.
Yep, Marley, thanks. And I know, like a lot of parents this morning, I woke up with college-age kids and beyond. You realize, did your kids come down? In my case, their friends were down here, and I think a lot of people woke up to that news this morning. And, of course, there are 6 victims that are still getting treated this morning. Amanda has been on that story, and she joins us right now with an update on that from ORMC. Amanda, what do we know right now?
And Ryan, we did get an update on that number. A total of 9 people were transported to the Orlando Regional Medical Center, and Orlando police tell us 2 victims were killed. Of those surviving victims, they are both men and women ranging in ages between 19 and 39 years old. We are told that they are stable, but that is a very broad term for a condition, so it is unknown at this hour if these victims are able to cooperate with investigators on this case. I asked the chief of police if these victims were known to the suspect, and he says that is all still under investigation. Now, there were as many as 100,000 people in downtown when shots broke out, and more than 100 officers were working detail. Several officers were just feet away from the gunman when the shooting happened and were able to capture him and take him into custody. Here's what Orlando Police Chief Eric Smith had to say about the instant response.
As soon as they heard the shots fired, you can watch any of these videos. None of the officers, went the other way. They didn't go with the crowd. Most of them, got a little bit of cover between them. They started scanning, seeing what was going on, and then they moved. They took action to keep everybody else safe, and that's what these officers do, and that's their job, and they did it, and I'm very proud of them.
Now, we are told that no officers fired their weapons, so those who were injured in this shooting were because of this shooting suspect. Right now, the identities of these victims have not yet been released because police say they are still in the process of notifying their families. As for any motive in this case, that is still under investigation, but the big question is just why would a 17-year-old open fire in the middle of a busy crowd on Halloween night? Reporting live in downtown Orlando, Amanda McKenzie, Ryan.
All right, Amanda, thank you. And, of course, we do reflect back to 2 years ago, because remember, we had that shooting that left 7 people injured. There was never an arrest in that case. There were a lot of changes, though, that came from that. Back in May in 2023, downtown bars, they were required at that point to abide by a new permit system. This was to serve alcohol. Businesses in the downtown entertainment area have to pay now $250 to have a permit after midnight. They also have extra security for weekends. That can get expensive. Not long after that shooting, there were 6 security checkpoints that were also set up. And we want to bring in Dave Benson now. We've had him on a number of times, security expert and also a downtown resident. So, Dave, first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's talk about what we see this morning, because there's a stark difference between 2 years ago. It's awful to see, but there was a very quick arrest in this case. Yet this person shot someone with 100 officers around.
Yeah, and there's no such thing as perfect security, Ryan, as we've talked about. The best you can do is take appropriate precautions, layers of security. In this case, large police presence, and they'd planned for this. I don't have any indication that they knew this was going to happen, but if it happened or something like this, they had a response plan, and they responded tremendously.
There are a lot of things that are concerning. A 17-year-old with a history that's down here with a gun. Shooting, we don't know, maybe a targeted victim. Is that your initial thought here? Is this, they're still investigating, but we don't know at this point.
We don't know for sure. It could be targeting. It could be 1 or 2 individuals that are being targeted, and everybody else is collateral damage. Sometimes when they start shooting, they start spreading spraying fire, and that can be a problem. We just don't know that yet. I think the investigations coming up are going to be very critical in that regard.
David, for anyone that comes down here and any parent, they're concerned about the one time. You can come down here 40 nights in a row and everything's safe. But if you get caught in that moment last night, we saw that video with some 50 to 100,000 people. What do people really need to be aware of on those?
Yeah, and if your listeners have been, our viewers have been watching me over the years, have a plan, have a personal plan. We want you to live your lives. These are admittedly low probability but very high impact events when they happen. So when they do, we need to be prepared. Have a place to reunite with their party, get out of harm's way, don't hang around. Think about the what ifs, whether you're inside a club, outside the club, in the middle of the street, and that's your best chance of staying safe in a situation like this.
Let's finish with this, the tragedy that 2 are killed, but that quick arrest, what a difference that makes from 2 years ago.
Oh, it does, and I can't tell, as a retired federal law enforcement officer, director of a federal law enforcement training center, really proud of the police response, and I'm sure they will get to the bottom of this soon. They apprehended the person almost immediately, which is amazing.
All right, Dave, appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
We should add, as you can imagine, Halloween night, one of the busiest nights for police down here on what is a busy stretch for them already, but this is one of the busiest nights last night. We'll continue to have the latest, a lot of unanswered questions from downtown. Let's go back to the studio.
You know, Ryan, you actually have Dave there, and I want to ask you and him almost a question here. A couple years ago, you know, when we had that shooting in downtown Orlando, police kind of had perimeters up, and they were checking for weapons. They had people go through those metal detectors. You know, and I believe the police chief said something about a law, and that prevented them from doing that this time. Do you think that that might, you know, have people question, should we bring that back? Can Dave maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, he can, Deborah, because Dave and I were talking about this before, Dave, the fact that they're trying to put those 6 perimeters up to check for weapons, but you've heard from police that sometimes that law gets to be a problem where if someone is carrying, now obviously a 17-year-old, there might be other issues there, but if you're an adult carrying, what does that do for police?
It makes it problematic because you're not able to profile people. We don't want to encourage that, but that permitless carry law that passed in July of 2023 means certain categories of individuals don't need to have a permit to conceal carry. Now, we shouldn't be seeing open carry. That's another issue, but it just makes it problematic for law enforcement in trying to detect the potential for that. If it's a private property, it's up to the owners of the private property to make a decision. When you're in a public street, I think it's a very different situation.
Dave, thanks. One of many things we're watching, and an unanswered question, Deb, but that is a concern and a question after an event like this.
Yeah, definitely so. Appreciate that insight, Ryan. And Dave, thanks so much.
All right, we're going to keep updating this story for you all day long on air and online. You can go to the Fox 35 News app. We do expect that we'll have news conferences throughout the day. And of course, as soon as that happens, we'll bring that to you along with our forecast. We'll be right back.
All right, that is our Fox 35 Orlando team. We are going to be checking in with them as we have been over the past several hours, gathering the latest details after we do know from the police chief there in Orlando, Florida, that 8 people were shot, 2 of them dead, and 6 others taken to a hospital listed in stable condition, which we all know is a very vague term. So we're waiting on an update from officials there as to the really conditions overall of those 6 other victims. Now, the 17-year-old suspect is in custody, and as you saw there, we do now have this surveillance video that was released a short time ago by Orlando police, and they circled here that suspect as he was walking through the large crowd. One thing you're also going to notice is a lot of people that are dressed in Halloween costumes because this was a Halloween party of sorts there in the heart of downtown Orlando, Florida. Again, that 17-year-old facing several charges right now. We are working to get a little bit more about that as well, but we do know that just last year, he was arrested on a charge of grand theft. Still a lot more to learn, though, about his history overall, and we don't have an answer as to a possible motive